WoW's health, the numbers don't lie. Here's what we discovered. I mean, I'm expecting a significant drop in World of Warcraft's numbers, considering all the stuff that has been happening. I don't know if that is what Bellular is talking about in this video, but let's see what's going on, shall we?
Okay, this is going to be a fun video. Tell me if you've heard something like this recently.
A fun video?
World of Warcraft is facing a mass exodus. Everyone's leaving. The cities are empty, the guilds are dying, and the only people left are the boosters and the boosted. It's worse than ever before. Have you heard something like that?
Yep.
Because I think we've all heard some sentiment like that across the internet. You know, looking at the forums, the social media, I think we can all say that it's gone a little bit wrong. But sentimental and anecdotal evidence is, not actually that useful.
Little bit wrong.
Do you know what is very useful? Data, numbers, and wow, they tell us a story. So today we're going to get into it. We're going to break down the numbers for World of Warcraft to get an overall picture of the game's health. Now, of course, Blizzard don't share their
those
numbers,
those aren't
but we've
public.
dug up quite a lot, and we can use some intuition. It's going to be pretty big. But like with your intuition, which is probably saying that it's time to get a great site together with today's sponsor, squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming, where...
That's actually what my intuition was telling me. It was telling me it's about time for that ad placement, Bellular.
You'll get a free trial, and the code Bellular Gaming gets you 10% off your first purchase. The link is down below, and it is just simple.
I've been sponsored by Squarespace.
Are the fastest and easiest way to get a great-looking site quickly. I built this showcase site in about 40 minutes, just chilling out with my iPad on the sofa, and it then took barely any time to add e-commerce to it. It's pretty damn sweet. Their award-winning templates are simply awesome. They just let you hit the ground running with your stuff looking great, and of course with that room to customize later. Now, your website is what people see of you online, so do you want your portfolio to stand out? Well, I think then a gorgeous, clean, content-first site is what you need. But of course, there's more than just portfolios. Do you want a site for your business, a personal site, e-commerce? I mean, Squarespace have even got membership features set up now. They've got an excellent site builder, easy-to-use tools, and incredible templates that are all that you need to get started. So, start your free trial at squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming and use the code Bellular Gaming for 10% off your first purchase.
Why Squarespace instead of WordPress? Legit question, because Squarespace has an easier to use interface than WordPress. You know, depending on how experienced the user is, Squarespace is a lot easier. Like you can get WordPress to look like a Squarespace website. You might even get it to look better, because it all depends on how good you are at programming the interface of it. But Squarespace is a lot easier for your average user than WordPress.
All right, let's get into these juicy numbers. Okay, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. This might get a little dry, so here's something to whet your appetite with. World of Warcraft almost certainly has less than 2 million active players right now. Oh.
Did you guys remember World of Warcraft used to have like 10 million, over 10 million players? Dude, World of Warcraft is taking a massive beating.
Generous estimate is around the 1.6 million mark, but it could be as low as 1.2 million. And that's as of 9.1, by the way. These numbers actually don't take into account the recent explosion of bad PR. Moving from 9.0 to 9.1, World of Warcraft lost about half of its player base. I mean, literally half the active characters and half the raiding guilds stopped. Mythic Plus activity is down substantially, and
you guys remember when Preach's guild completed Mythic Nathria? You guys remember that video? Where basically it was immediately after their guild complete. I don't even know if it was Mythic or Heroic. I think it was Mythic, right? Pretty sure it was Mythic, but it was like immediately after they completed Mythic, the guild disbanded like that night. That's how burned out people are in World of Warcraft, especially the more hardcore players, because It's like you don't want to play a game that's basically chores. It's like you have plenty of chores to do in your real life. You don't want to log into a game to do chores. It's boring. It's not smart.
And PvP participation has fallen off a cliff, as has activity there. Player retention is rather in the bin, and we do have evidence here. Also, at a rough estimate, just over 10% of active characters actually raid. We'll explain that later. Now, for Blizzard overall, user numbers are actually their lowest in years. And that's actually in the same quarter as 9.1 and TBC Classic. Take a second for this. When do you think Blizzard's numbers have recently been the lowest? If you're thinking about sweaty orcs,
Yeah, I was
pounding
thinking
drums,
about Warlords
and
of
an
Draenor,
expansion
but it's
cut short,
probably not.
then you're right.
I am?
Because the
Okay.
last time that Blizzard's monthly active users were this low, well, it was before Legion, it was before Overwatch. In Q1 2016, they had 26 million monthly active users. In Q2 2021, despite TBC Classic going live and patch 9.1 releasing on the last day, they're back down there again.
There's
at
not as
26 million.
nostalgia for TBC.
Now, for a comparison, their peak
I think there will be more nostalgia for when they release Wrath of the Lich King Classic than for TBC. That's my opinion. I always hear people talk about Burning Crusade this, Burning Crusade that, and yeah, I enjoyed Burning Crusade, but I think Wrath of the Lich King is when they'll see a rise. Actually, after the PR nightmare they're going through, I don't actually know, but assuming the PR stuff didn't happen, I think Wrath of the Lich King is when they would get it.
was 46 million in 2017, with Overwatch pumping, Diablo launching the Necromancer, and Hearthstone popping off, all while Legion was in the midst of patch 7.2. But how does this 26 million monthly active users apply to World of Warcraft? Well, it's time to bring out our secret weapon, reading in between the lines. Because when talking about World of Warcraft, all they said in their investor slides was that net bookings grew, driven by TBC Classic's launch. 6-month subs, store mounts, and the Dark Portal Pass, they did their job, right?
Scumbag
Turning existing
techniques.
users into whales, meaning that bleeding players isn't as big a deal to your bottom line.
I'm Richard Branson.
Hey,
and I
Richard
have
Branson.
a once-in-a-lifetime
And it's like, yeah, bleeding players is not as bad because like we've saw in the leaks, bleeding players is not as bad due to the fact that they're just going to milk the remaining players in the cash shop, which is what I said that they're going to do. That's what they're going to do with World of Warcraft. They're going to milk every last player for everything they're worth. They're going to do bare minimum effort to get as much money as they possibly can out of people with store mounts, cosmetic stuff and mounts, all of that. They're going to do all of that. And then they're probably going to make the game free to play or whatever. And they're going to continue to milk a wave of new players. They're going to come in as World of Warcraft goes free to play. And, eventually World of Warcraft's just going to go the free to play route. That, I think, is what they're going to do. I don't see any other way for them to recover players at this point.
The most important thing is that Shadowlands was not mentioned specifically, and I think that means that they basically had nothing nice to say to their investors about it. And that means a lot. So, if you want the zingers, if you want the numbers in their simplest form, then in a way, there you go. There absolutely has been an exodus across the world of Warcraft and Blizzard in general, even before the big recent controversies. But that's not satisfying, is it? That doesn't make for a good video, and it's not even close to the full story or all of the evidence. We have to go deeper. It gets worse, but also better. Blizzard are tight-lipped about individual numbers for their games because that lets them control the narrative. Thanks to WoWranks.io, though, we know roughly how many characters there are in World of Warcraft, because the Armory API exists and all this data can be scraped. In the 28 days before August 2nd, there were just over 3 million characters who logged into World of Warcraft at least once and belonged to a covenant. On February 2nd, that same statistic was 6.1 million. That is less than half the active characters after 6 months. Not good. Now, for context, these characters must be either max level or currently doing Threads of Fate in order to have actually picked a covenant. And that's what makes them be included in the dataset. We can narrow this down by looking at how many characters have active soulbinds, because those only become available at level 60. Now, we only have this figure for the patch 9.1 data, and it's 2.7 million. Now, since the real activity of Shadowlands is in the endgame, that's what we can call our active player count. Look, sorry if you're below max level, you absolutely do matter, it's just we can't track you. We have no way of knowing all of these.
And here's the other thing that you got to keep in mind. These are characters. 2.6 million characters, not users. So like even just for me, I had 2 max level characters. And that's me, that I wasn't even that active. I still had 2 max level characters. I know that my guild leader, Q, well, he wasn't really the guild leader, but for all intents and purposes, he was. He had like 3, 4? I don't know. And most people in the guild had multiple max level characters. So it's like when you take that into account, you're not even talking about like 2 million players. You're probably talking about half of that. Like, let's just average out to like 2 characters per player, because those are the really hardcore players. So they'll at least have like 1 alt. If you just go for 2 characters, talking about 1.3 million active players.
These characters, how many are alts? But if we assume the average is anywhere between 1.5 and 3 alts per player, then it does paint a dark picture.
Yeah.
Remember, you might only have 1 character, but there are those people with loads of alts. World of Warcraft basically is between 1 and 2 million players. At least in that endgame pop. That alt estimate might seem high to you, but remember, it's just max level characters who logged in during the month of a new patch. Now, Shadowlands isn't exactly an alt-friendly experience, but returning players are almost certainly going to be logging in to other characters at least once. And for an example, on our team, Matt is pretty sure that he counts for 6. Yeah, 6 characters. Even though really he only raid logs on just 1 character when he's healing for our raids. So there's your zinger. There were 2.7 million logged in max level characters during patch launch. If we say the average player logged onto 2 characters, then that takes you down to 1.35 million active endgame players.
Which is what I said just now.
To get an even clearer picture, 9.1 has had 1.8 million unique characters complete a Mythic Plus run. That number also includes alts. All of these things point to a big takeaway. World of Warcraft basically must be decently below 2 million active players right now. Also, that's only 1 point of data, and we've got no historical comparison.
And keep in mind the thing that he also said earlier, which is all of this data does not take into account all of the bad press that Blizzard has received. So the actual numbers might be even lower at this point in time, because a lot of people started quitting WoW after the news. So if the numbers were this bad before the news, then right now I would wager you're looking at 500,000 active players, give or take. I know that's an aggressive estimate, but I'm talking players, not alts. I'm talking just like actual raw players that are logging in and playing World of Warcraft actively. I'd wager they're about 500,000. 500,000 to like 800,000. I'm telling you it's below 1 million, at least.
So to get a better picture, right? Let's go and have more data. Let's go through it. Let's talk about in-game activity in World of Warcraft. And we'll start by looking at the foundational pillar of World of Warcraft's endgame, raiding.
Rating's not a good
Our first
estimate.
comparison will be using some recent data from Raider.io. The number of guilds who raided in the 0.0 patch compared to the 0.1 patch. Basically, tracking how many raiders don't come back for the next patch.
Oh.
Now, while we're talking about guilds, remember that raids on normal and heroic can be anywhere between 10 and 30 players in size, although medium sizes are usually preferred by people. So if you multiply by somewhere between 15 and 20, then you'll have an extremely rough number of the characters who are involved in raiding. Anyway, let's take a look then. In the first month of Castle Nathria, 37,447 guilds killed Shriekwing in normal. In the first month of Sanctum of Domination, only 18,594 killed Taragru. So basically, half of WoW's guilds did not come back. Specifically, 50.35% didn't come back. To use our very, very rough estimate of raid size, this means anywhere between 560 and 750,000 characters.
I'll tell you what, I know it sucks, and I would like to see WoW get better and all of that, assuming that the workers get the best possible work conditions and all of that, and we are somehow able to sort out, and do right by the people that were abused during their stay at Blizzard. Assuming most optimistic scenario, right? I actually think it's a really good thing that more than half of the guilds never came back. I think this is a really good thing for World of Warcraft because hopefully it would serve as a wake-up call. This is like the actual slap in the face. Because, listen, if at this point the World of Warcraft team does not change the way they're developing the game deserves to burn. It deserves to burn, to go to hell, to fucking go bankrupt. It deserves to disappear. If the team does not listen at this point, then they don't deserve to develop this IP. They don't deserve to work on this IP. If they don't listen, what the player base is saying, with them not coming back because essentially what the game is a set of chores, if they don't listen to that message loud and clear, then it's time for World of Warcraft to just die. It's gotten to the point for me where it's like, look, I'd rather see it die than go the way it's been going. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I'd rather see it burn to the ground than to keep on going the way that it is. Fuck it. Shadowlands is hopefully will be a turning point in one way or another. Because it's crazy. It's crazy that some people at Blizzard are so like, I wonder why players don't want to log into our patch 9.1. What could we have possibly done wrong? I don't know. Could have something to do with the RNG nature of your progression systems. Could have something to do with the 20 hours of weekly chores you expect people to do in order to actually do the things that they like, both on their main characters and on their alts. Could have something to do with the shitty vault in Mythic Plus that fucking sucks dick. Could have something to do with, I don't know, dude. Could have something to do with the you guys just sexually harassing women in your workplace. There's like a million things it could have had to do with that. Hopefully the message gets through loud and clear. We don't want to do chores when we're playing video games. You want to know what keeps players playing video games? Having fun. That's what keeps them playing.
Killed Shriekwing in that time period, but only between 280k and 370k for Taragru. That looks a lot smaller than our active character count, doesn't it? It's food for thought. Out of curiosity, we took a look at the same 0.0 patch to 0.1 patch difference, but in Battle for Azeroth. The exact same methodology returns a less substantial drop in players, only 30%. Over 34,000 people killed Talok in Uldir in the first month, and that dropped to 24,000 killing Champion of Light in Dazara Lore. Still huge, but it does pale in comparison to a whole 50% drop. It also means less reigning guilds in 9.1 than in 8.1, despite there being many more.
Wait a second, didn't Blizzard essentially replace Raider.io? Wouldn't this data be somewhat compromised due to the fact that Blizzard has their own Raider.io system now in 9.1? See, I don't know enough about that. I don't know if players are actually With this Raider that... It depends on how many players are actually using Raider.io, though. That's the thing. I don't know.
More at the launch of Shadowlands. However, it's not all catastrophic numerically. Patch 8.2 and 8.3 had a lot fewer first boss kills in the first month than 9.3. Nyalotha and Eternal Palace only had 14k come in for those basically free first boss normal kills. However, it still is lower than 21k for Tomb of Sargeras, which was another 0.2 patch. Messy numbers, but the point is clear. Shadowlands is performing very poorly for player retention in between the patches. Now, while we're still on the topic of raiding, we do have another figure. Mid-tier drop-off. We've looked at how many people come back to raid for a new patch, but how many actually survive to the end of the raid? Well, for this, we can look at how many guilds got ahead of the curve. Nathria had the worst drop-off ever seen. Despite a record number of guilds trying and clearing it, the percentage that actually got curved was the lowest recorded since Legion. If that doesn't tell you
I didn't
how
get
players
curved.
felt about the Shadowlands, I think nothing can. Of 41,837 guilds who progressed throughout 9.0, 22,979 killed Denathrius. That's just shy of 55%. Uldir was actually similarly bad. Only 56% of 34,000 guilds made it to Gahun. Other raids that we've got data for are in the high 70s. So either the 0.0 raids are harder, or the less dedicated, sort of new expansion players generally don't come back for the later patches and stick with it for ages. Now, to Shadowlands' credit, more guilds killed Denathrius on Heroic than any other end boss in modern WoW. So I guess it's a big shame about Sanctum then. If you want a TLDR for raiding, this is it. Point number 1. A record number of guilds jumped into Castle Nathria, and a record number stuck through to kill Denathrius. However, the proportion of guilds who stayed to the end fell by almost 50%. Point 2 then. The drop-off in raiding from Nathria to Sanctum of Domination is around 50%, and that is significantly worse than the 30% drop-off in early BFA. Point 3. Our very rough estimate.
Imagine Shadowlands being worse than BFA.
Of characters who have killed Taragru on normal is between 10 and 13% of the active endgame character count. On Heroic, that shrinks to between 8 and 10%, and if we correct for alts, that means that somewhere between 15 and 20% of the player's raid. If nothing else, that proves that there's more to World of Warcraft, so let's look elsewhere. Let's look to the land of Mythic Plus. For Mythic,
this is a terrible idea. Like, even less people even less people do Mythic Plus than people that raid. I mean, depending on the level of the keys. I'm talking about anything like above maybe, I guess right now the cap would, not the cap, but like the level at which it gets challenging is probably 15.
Plus, Raider.io is again a very handy resource with, notably, the unique class population. As of August 9th, 9.1 has seen 1.8 million unique characters complete a Mythic Plus run. Of those, 1.2 million have done a 10 or above, and 700k have done a 15 or above. Now, remember our figure from earlier, that there are approximately 2.7 million active endgame characters.
Wait, so actually there's more people doing M+.
If a whole 1 million of them have not done Mythic Plus, then there are two possible options. Number 1, loads of those characters are alts and haven't done M+ yet. That's the easiest option, and it does cut the projected player count down substantially, kind of lining up with our earlier suggestions. 2, they are unique players, but don't actually do Mythic Plus. Now, since Mythic Plus is one of the 3 activities to do in endgame World of Warcraft, and also does provide the best, easiest source of gear for most, that doesn't...
What? The easiest source of gear? Normal raiding is way easier. What? The easiest source of gear. It's like the most unreliable source of gear in the entire game. You literally get one piece of loot if you don't time it for 5 people. If you do time it, you get 2 pieces of loot for 5 people. It's a terrible way to gear up. I completely disagree with that point. Like, Mythic Plus is terrible for gearing. I did Mythic Plus because I liked it. Mythic Plus is terrible for gearing up.
Bode well for the game. But unique characters don't tell the whole story. What about engagement in the Mythic Plus system? Well, thanks to Best Keystone, we can actually track that via completed runs. So here's a look at the 3 most recent seasons. It's early days, but the lower starting point for patch 9.1 is instantly apparent. You can see Battle for Azeroth Season 4 started off strong, just below 1 million dungeon runs per week, and it fell off slowly over time. Shadowlands Season 1, for comparison, was a bit slow to start, but there actually are 2 factors there. Factor 1 is gear scaling. Mythic Zeros were providing gear for more players for longer before they needed to hop into the Keystone dungeons. Factor 2 then is the release date of the expansion, because you can really see participation pick up in week 5, and that is when the Christmas period was well and truly over. But if we're here to talk about the current numbers, then I think you can see that Season 2 is off to a very slow start. None of the time or gear barriers exist. In fact, it's the opposite, since players with existing gear can immediately hop into the higher level keys. But even in each of the first 2 weeks, only around 720k runs were finished. In Season 1, it took until around week 18 to dip that low. It's hard to draw a meaningful comparison here, but patch 9.1 is trending to be...
There's also no new dungeons, right? Is there any... There's a mega dungeon, but that's not in the Mythic Plus system yet, right? So there's no new dungeons. Like, why would people want to run the same old dungeons? They probably got most of the gear they could get out of it. Gear scaled up. Okay, so yeah, you can go get a couple of measly upgrades if you're really, 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 really lucky. See, once again, the RNG is so much, and people are so fed up with the levels of RNG that you have to deal with, that they're like, dude, I don't want to go run no fucking plus 15 dungeon to get 2 points in my gear score. Who the hell wants to go run a 15 dungeon to get plus 2 on an item if you're lucky? If you're extremely lucky.
30 to 50% lower in engagement than 8.3 and 9.0. We don't have time in this video to go too deep here, but there are other interesting things, like the breakdown of classes and specs in Mythic Plus is a bit tragic. 37% of runs use a Guardian Druid tank, for example, and the bottom 6 DPS specs make up for less than 4% of overall DPS. A Guardian...
That's Blizzard balancing for you right there. That's Blizzard balancing for you right there. Right there! There's your fucking balance. This is one of the reasons why I fucking can't stand this game, dude. Imagine wanting to be a fucking protection warrior. Imagine. And the best part is the reason why protection warriors suck pretty much every single fucking patch and every single fucking expansion is because Blizzard didn't know how to fucking balance them during vanilla, and they were the ones who weren't even 37%. It was probably like during vanilla, warriors were probably like the whole fucking graphic. It's like all of the other tanks put together were the 7.9. And since then, Blizzard's been reaming warriors in the ass nonstop. So it's like they've been paying for Blizzard's mistakes in vanilla since fucking forever, dude. No, he's not plus 20 on Prot Warrior. He's a Fury Warrior. I swear to God, ever since I stopped playing Cataclysm, I haven't played a single patch where the warrior was good. And I know that it's been good on some patches. I'm saying I wasn't playing the game during those patches. Not a single one. And I've played a significant amount of World of Warcraft since Cataclysm, and not once I'm not even saying warriors being top like the Guardian Druids over here. I'm saying just being good enough. Just being good enough.
Druid tank, for example, and the bottom 6 DPS specs make up for less than 4% of overall DPS. Ouch. So, that's that done. What of PvP?
Oh yeah, they're really good at balancing that.
Now then, last part of our puzzle, PvP. Our first source will be Gibbs over at Ludus Labs, who's done a stellar job. To hijack their summary from the end of July, PvP participation is down to around 1/3 of what it was in Season 1. This is likely due to the general people leaving, but also perhaps a lack of PvE relevant rewards. Using a sample of 250k characters, they found that 7.3% so far have played a 2v2, 4.6% have played a 3v3, and 3.3% have done an RBG. That's not a lot of participation, although the lack of PvE rewards, I guess, could be to blame. Let's just take a look at the raw numbers then. So here is a chart from Zunimate tracking the amount of games played each day in Season 2. Alright, no prizes for guessing when this season started. That huge spike of activity fell off extremely sharply before stabilizing. And as of August 8th, there are around 18k games of 2v2s, 34k games of 3v3s, and 8k games of RBGs being played on the daily. From May to June, it stayed around at 7k arena matches and 1k RBGs per day. Now, let's compare that to the earlier Zunimate numbers from the start of Season 1. Ouch. The peaks are notably larger in 2s and 3s, and the general fall-off is a lot slower. We're limited by the numbers we can actually check here, but let's use 3 weeks as our cutoff point. 3 weeks after Season 1 started, there were around 80k arena matches and 20k RBG matches being played each day. And now, at the same point in Season 2, there's around 50k matches for the arena and 8k for RBGs. And that is getting close to a 50% overall drop-off, which roughly does match the rest of our numbers. In conclusion then, Shadowlands has screwed the pooch. That's just what it is. We have the numbers. The beginning of this expansion had record raid numbers, over 6 million active characters, and a healthy blend of PvE and PvP. For all the quality and systems issues that Shadowlands had, it did bring people to the game excited and ready for some content. I guess the problem is that content never materialized, and those systems kind of ran aground once you went more than a few weeks into them.
Yep.
And just that systems heavy expansion and perhaps also the lore direction have just turned people.
There's also the fact that the way that the systems were designed, they were literally designed to trick the player base. Like, if you go back and you watch videos from people like Preach or even Asmongold or probably even me around the start of Shadowlands, all of us were looking at the systems and we're like, oh, this is going to be great. We're even going to be able to do alts because there's not that many chores. There's not that many chores to do. This is an alt-friendly expansion. This is great. That's the reason why I leveled up a warrior in the first couple of weeks as well. I had my paladin, and I was leveling up a warrior on the side. It was awesome. But then Blizzard, after those first couple of weeks, slowly but surely, they began like, okay, so now you got to do a little bit more at Torghast. Now you got to do a little bit more of the Maw. Now you got to do a little bit more. They started like inching. They basically started moving the goalposts to the point where the goal was like over a fucking mile long. It was over a fucking mile long. That's how much they moved the goalposts. They added so much bullshit in that nobody wanted to do it. And now you get what you deserve. You get what you fucking deserve. They deserve this. They fucking deserve this, dude. I swear. They fucking deserve that their player base fucking abandons them. They deserve it. because of this bullshit of forcing players to do shit that we don't want to do after we've told them a million times over all of the problems that these systems had. And as they kept on adding and piling up on top of those broken ass systems, what ended up happening? The players fucking ditched them. You get what you deserve. It is what it is. You get what you fucking deserve.
People away from World of Warcraft. Now, just after 9.1's launch, there are almost certainly less than 2 million people playing World of Warcraft, at least at the end game, which really
I'd
is
say
most of
less
World of
than 1
Warcraft,
million at this
with
point.
that drop-off basically being across all activity measurements.
I believe that at this point, like I was saying earlier, after the negative PR and all that, we're talking sub 1 million active users, not characters, users, regardless of how many characters they have. Sub 1 million. I'd go as far as saying that 500 million is the close. 500,000 is my closest estimate. I believe there's around 500,000 players playing World of Warcraft right now. That would be my stab. Like if I had to place a bet, I'd go like 500,000, 600,000, no more than that. 500,000, 600,000.
I mean, roughly, you're speaking half of the characters, half the raiding guilds, about 30% less Mythic Plus being completed, and about half the engagement in PvP. And we haven't even seen where those raid and M Plus numbers are going to go over the coming weeks, so maybe I'll have to do an update video. Now remember, by the way, these numbers do not include the damage that the lawsuits have done.
Exactly.
These numbers are pre that. So it could be rough.
So it's worse.
The potential to bring people back should still be there with Shadowlands. I mean, it was the fastest selling PC game ever at the time of launch, and Blizzard's whole strategy revolves around explosive expansion marketing and then monetizing content launches with, you've got your jacked up editions, you've got your 6-month sub promos, things like that. But the question is, will they be able to sell an expansion to people who have been burned by Shadowlands? To the fans who feel betrayed by their beloved company's behavior internally?
They will.
I mean, is there a lore hook and a content hook that can...
They will. If there's one thing that my Diablo 2 video proved is that they will. They don't give a fuck. Like 80 to 70% of Blizzard gamers, so to speak, they don't give a fuck, dude. It's like, yeah, we'll buy the next expansion. No problem. Yeah, whatever. What, you sexually assaulted somebody? I don't care. Like I told you guys, some of the comments that I got in that video, like a lot of people simply do not care. They don't care. They don't care about any of this. They don't care that Blizzard took their trust, took a dump on it. They do not care. They're so, they're so beyond. It's like, didn't you guys told me that Asmongold said in the video that retail is beyond saving? It's the same thing with a lot of these people. They will absolutely buy a new expansion. They do not care. And it's like, whatever, your money, you do what you want. That's none of my business. You do whatever the hell you want, but, Can
actually reclaim all of that lost ground. It's kind of hard to say. I guess we'll just have to follow up when we get next month numbers, so we really know what's going on. They may not be pretty. It's a rough situation. I would like to say a big thanks to Squarespace, especially in these rough times. Having sponsors like Squarespace stick with us is just an awesome thing. Really helps us. And the great thing is, they're an awesome company. They've got an awesome set of tools. We use them, so check out the link below. And a big thank you to them for helping to make content like this possible. All right, that's it for me. Let me know what you think. Take care. I'll see you next time.
Yep. Like I said, what this tells me is that this is going to be a turning point for World of Warcraft. It's either going to end up going the free-to-play route that we were talking about at the start of the video, or it will actually change for the better, but I genuinely do not believe that they're going to be able to change for the better. It's just not in their nature anymore. They just don't have the passion. I don't even think it's about whether or not they have the people. They do not have the passion. The people that are in the team, most of them do not have the passion. There's one department in there that I would say is an exception, and that is the art department. The art department is probably the only ones that still have any passion left for World of Warcraft, because you can tell the game still looks gorgeous. It's got a beautiful art style. I think the game looks great. The art department are clearly the only ones that still have any passion left. The systems designers don't give a fuck. The writers don't give a fuck. Like, they don't. They just don't. It is what it is. They just fucking don't. I guess the network team can get a couple of pats on the back as well. It's not like the game's been unstable. At least when I was playing it, it was fine. So the network infrastructure people, they're probably doing a good job too. But if you want to talk about passion for World of Warcraft, I'd say the art department are the only ones left with any kind of passion. Everybody else is just like fucking phoning it in. They're just phoning it in. They do not give a fuck.